Hello and welcome to another episode of the Empowered Hormones podcast. I'm your host, Sheridan Decker, and today I'm super excited to have Emma on the podcast. I would say a friend and a FIFO guru. So thank you for being here.
Thank you. I'm so happy to be here today.
I feel like we chat all the time, but it's never recorded, and it's usually in and out and around health stuff in some kind of ways, or about dating, or about men,
Yes.
or about whinging about bloody the health and Medicare system and all those kinds of things.
Yeah, we have great chats.
I know. So you have got a little bit of a story for us. So how did you get into what I want to say your guru and your passion and what you do now? Because like I was just saying to you before the start of the podcast, I do work with a lot of FIFO women who struggle with, all the swings are different, but who can struggle with the time away, the consistency, the mental health load of FIFO. And then obviously if you're a FIFO wife, there's those stress and pressure that comes with it as well. So how did you get into the niche of supporting women in the FIFO industry?
Yeah, so it's quite a story, and I guess it's something that I didn't really think I was heading towards. But COVID sort of helped me along the way too, if I can say that.
Yes.
So I started off as just a personal trainer, and but I did have a lot of FIFO clients, and just by spending time with them and working with them, I knew that I needed to do a little bit more than just the normal PT stuff with them. So then COVID hit, and PT stuff pretty much went to hell. Like it was really hard to have group stuff and things like that. And I guess for me, I feel like I could connect with the FIFO girls because I've lived and worked in a mining town, and I've also been that person. I've been the FIFO wife. So I've been the person at home while my husband at the time worked away. I was at home with kids. I lived in a town with kids. Took my kids to the Pilbara. I'd sort of been around the industry for a long time in lots of different ways. I opened a business up there, um, lots of different things like that. So I guess I could understand some of the things that the complaints that they were coming to me with. I was like, yeah, I've lived there. I know you wash your hair and it's just itchy as hell because the water sucks, and just like you can relate to things that are going on, and just the harshness. Living in 47 degrees for 3-4 months on end.
Do you reckon it
um,
impacted your health living up there? Like,
Absolutely, yeah. Yeah, it does. I think, whether it's just your skin that takes most of it. I mean, I instantly when we moved up there, I had a shower and washed my hair, and I instantly got so itchy. I was like, oh my God, what is this? And I ended up with like eczema sort of stuff on my scalp just from the water there. And that's something that I hear a lot of, like from girls now. They're like, I'm itchy, my skin is itchy, everything's flaring up just from the water. That's just one of the few things that
yeah.
goes along with being up there.
Yeah, because then what's your access to fresh produce like? I'm assuming you can get most things, but the travel time must be longer or the freshness must be different than here.
Yeah, yeah. As far as shopping goes, it's really difficult. So if you are residential and you live in the town, it's obviously a lot better than if you're living and staying at the camp on site. So where we lived, we had a Coles in town. However, there were days where the bread would miss the flight. The food would just miss the flight to get to us. So then we'd have to wait for all sorts of different stuff. So I didn't do like a meal plan. Like now I just decide what I want to
Yeah.
eat for the week and I go shopping. When we lived in the Pilbara, I would go shopping and then I'd come home and plan with what was available to me.
Wow, that's crazy. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I suppose that's a totally flip reverse way of living, especially if you've got specific dietary goals or needs or macros or anything that you're trying to hit. All of a sudden, you've got to be open to being flexible with it all and without wanting to always grab like always be eating rice or stuff, that's consistent,
Yeah.
that's always there or whatever. You kind of would get sick of the same things.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And I feel like we were quite lucky in that we did have a Coles. There are plenty of other towns where it's an IGA or it's a much smaller, like general store kind of shop that's available. And then there's the others that are just on a camp where you don't have access to anything other than what you're given. So when you have the dietary, things to look out for, It's hard. It's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah. I would think the number one issue, if that's the best use of words, I find with the women who are working on sites and are flying and traveling out, they're kind of like sometimes they're like, cool, I can just grab some steamed veggies and my meat and I have those options. But other times it's really hard to make good food options with what is there and how it's cooked and how it's fried and then what it's cooked in and the sauces, especially if they've got like FODMAP or SIBO or gut issues. Like it's like, how do you navigate
Yeah.
food that's given to you?
Yeah, it's so difficult. And I mean, even just, looking at someone that doesn't have any gut issues, and all they want to do is track their macros and their calories, you can't because you don't know what's in the food that you're eating on site. So even when it comes to the basics of just counting your calories, and tracking your food is really difficult because, yeah, as you said, you don't know what it's been cooked in. You don't know the sauces and the marinades is what gets to me the most. Everything gets covered in a sauce or a gravy or some kind of
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And like you said, like you don't know what thickeners or additives or vegetable oils or
Yeah.
any of that kind of stuff if you want to go even that next slight level of sort of things that could be triggers. And like even for eczema and stuff, like yeah, there's the water and the sun and the harshness of the environment. But then if you are sensitive to these things, like a lot of people
Yeah.
are really sensitive to the vegetable oils and the thickeners and stuff, then those foods are all going to trigger you. So is the best workaround for that A, trying to select the plainest meal possible, but B, how much stuff can you take with you onto site? Or is there certain things that like you find the women go, yes, I always take, certain muesli bars or certain something with me so that I know what's in it and I know I've got a decent snack on hand.
Yeah, yeah. So, as we were just saying before, it's different at every site. I do have clients that will prep all their meals and take everything with them, because they have access to do that, and their travel time is relatively short. So it's just one flight and then a 5-minute bus ride to site. Whereas other people have, multiple flights, and a lot of travel time. So it's not practical to be able to do things like that. So with those girls, what we sort of do is we look at what they can take. So you can make protein balls at home. You can take some good quality oats with you. You can take chia seeds with you. Just those little things that you can like add to food. I know a lot of people take avocados.
Yeah.
So many people take avocados to site because they're, I
I
guess,
guess that could make sense because they would
yeah.
travel unripe. Right? We know what avocados are like now, and they could take ages, but you would take them to site and they would ripen up nicely over a couple of days, I suppose. Yeah, that makes
Yeah. Yeah.
because some sites you have fridges like that you can store your own stuff in as well.
Yeah, so most places, I'm going to say most places, but I know that there's always an exception. Most places you do have a little fridge in your room. However, storage becomes a bit of an issue because they're like those tiny little bar fridges that you would have in like a hotel or whatever. They're really quite small. So it depends on how much room you have. Yeah, to how much you can take up. So we're looking at pantry staples more than taking fresh stuff up with them. So that's where the good quality oats, bringing chia seeds, bringing like little things like that to add to foods, even just a good quality coffee, rather than having the sachets of the Nescafe.
Yes, yes.
Taking something a little bit nicer.
Yeah, and then even like a protein powder and stuff, I guess,
Yeah,
is good. And if you struggle with dairy, I guess you can travel with, a thing of almond milk for your week or whatever that might
yeah,
be helpful as well. Yeah, you're right. Those pantry items are good, or even the extra fiber, the LSA and the chia and all that
yeah,
stuff would be a game changer. And then just for taste, like for niceness, like having
yeah.
a little bit of dried fruit or a little bit of nice honey with you, or those kinds of things could be a game changer just to make you actually eat that stuff as well.
Yeah, yeah, just to add to it, just so it feels like, I guess for a lot of girls, it's like the food there, if they're trying to pick the healthiest, it is really bland. So if you can add those little bits, like a nice quality honey, oh my goodness, I love honey. If you could add like a really nice one
Yeah.
to your oats in the morning or something, it's just going to make it a little bit easier to survive. Then
Yeah.
we got to look at luggage allowance as well, because you're only allowed to take a certain amount of luggage. So that's why there are people that take their almond milks and things with them if they only need small amounts. But when you're looking at taking depends if you've got a permanent room or not. You know, you're taking 20 kilos worth of your own personal stuff when you factor in your steel cap boots and, you know, belts and tools and different bits and pieces that you need to take. So it does present some challenges, but we work our way around most challenges.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's good though. But what about then from like that high pressure, the stress, the mindset, those kinds of things would be really hard because it'd be easy to be like, well, I'm on site for the next week or 2 weeks or whatever. Like I just kind of give up. I'm just going to work and get through my days. But then if there is a gym or if they're like staying positive, like I would find that stuff really hard. Like the mental health aspect of being away from home and having that pressure must get to people as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And even just, I mean, coming into Christmas time now, we're coming to quite a busy time of the year. And then you get the missing out. You know, people miss out on a lot at this time of year. They either have to work through Christmas, they might have to work New Year's, they're missing out on family, Christmas functions, those sorts of things. This is the time of year where we see a massive increase in the loneliness, in people wanting to take time off, but they're not able to. This is when, you know, this time of year when it really ramps up a bit, and it's is concerning because, you know, you're out there in the middle of the desert essentially by yourself. I mean, you've got your crew with you, and for the most part, you make great friendships on site. Like you really can form some good bonds, and they become your family. But it you're still missing out on a lot. So, you know, coming to this time of year and just in general, managing your stress, managing the long work days, the heat as well at this time of year, um, pressure to get things done from your managers, from, you know, getting things done before Christmas time, before people start to go on leave. You do see a massive increase in that stress, that burnout, and it's really it's hard because you have to be so self-disciplined on site. You have to be able to take control of that for yourself and go, hey, I'm really stressed today. I need to go back to my room. I need to do some journaling. I need to do a meditation. I need to do some quiet stretching, whatever it is that works for you. I've got a lady that loves knitting. She takes her knitting up with her. So something to like get that de-stress, but it really becomes up to you to manage that, which I guess as you would know, when you are in a really
Yeah.
state of stress and burnout, it's hard to manage your own stress.
Yeah, for sure. And like you said, like that access to gyms and stuff would vary as well and the quality of your
Yeah.
gyms. And I remember one girl I was living with in Queensland and she had a really great gym and they had fitness classes on and like the women went there together and it was, you know, like 6 p.m. or 7 p.m. or whatever after their work day. But she said that is what got her through was just having that either early mornings or at the end of the day, whatever it was that they were on. She's like, I just needed that something that wasn't solely about work. So otherwise it was just eat, sleep, work, get up, eat, sleep, work, get up. She's like, if I didn't
Yeah.
have something else, it was really tricky.
Yeah, it's so easy to fall into that pattern as well. And I know people that start there with that sort of eat, sleep, work, repeat kind of routine. They're trying to do it because they're trying to stay away from the pub, the wet mess. You know, they want to stay away from that drinking culture that's there, but then it becomes just like so repetitive. You're doing the same things every day. And that's where the gym is really a lifesaver. I mean, I'm the kind of person when I'm stressed out, I want to go to the gym and just sort my head out.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if you know, but again, it is hard to motivate yourself some days when you're on site because you're looking at everyone around you. Everyone's had a long day, and half the crew go to have dinner and go and have a few drinks, and you have to be disciplined um, to go to the gym.
Yeah. Is there any like because you would have women who you work with or know, like who are trying to follow still a gym structure or a gym
Yep.
program while they're away? Yeah. Is do they struggle with that? Like because your energy's got to drop as well. Is there tips or tricks or things that you find really help get people motivated and still doing that while they're away?
Yeah, so it is something that I talk about with all my clients, like in our first sort of coaching call. We talk about what equipment is available because every gym has access to different things. We also talk about realistically what time they want to spend in a gym, and for most people, it's no more than 30 minutes. So when I write programs for people that are in the industry, I know that on their week or weeks away when they're on site, I can't have more than about 4, 5 exercises in a program for them, any more than that. And they end up, the dining hall shuts down at a certain time, so they can't go and get dinner after a certain time. So they need to be able to fit all of that into a relatively small amount of time. So we're looking at doing smaller workouts, and I generally, if weight loss or fat loss is the goal, we look at doing big compound movements. So we look at doing your squats, your deadlifts, your bench press, big movements, so that you're still burning as many calories as you can, getting as much bang for your buck, I guess, as you can by spending a small amount of time in the gym.
Well, that makes sense. And then the other thing is though, like I think as well, like say it was week on, week off, or 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off. The other thing is just maintaining the habit. Like if you can maintain your strength, and maybe you won't up your reps every week or whatever, like maybe you're not getting super strong super quickly or losing the weight super fast. So if you can maintain the habit for your mental health, but also then when you come home, you've still got the habit, and you know when you're at work, this is the habit you do. Because sometimes it's not always like about having the specific gains out of it, it's all the other benefits, but also just maintaining it as well, because then you stay in that routine, and then when you're in the routine, then sometimes you'll push yourself harder, sometimes you're just simply there getting through. But I don't know,
Yeah,
like I have that here at home as well. There's days where I don't feel like I can push that hard, especially around my period and stuff. I'm like, still go to the
yeah,
gym, still show up, because as soon as you start breaking the habit,
yeah.
then it becomes easier to continue breaking habits.
Yeah, and you can make as many excuses, you're like, "Oh, my period's due this week or it's due tomorrow, or I'm ovulating and I have that pain, bloating, whatever it is that you have." And it's like, "Oh, I'll just miss it this day." And then the next month you miss 2 days around ovulation, around your period, and it becomes really hard. So consistency is a big thing, and even between work and home. So at home, most people have access to a much better gym, and foods and stuff like that. So it's a lot easier to stay on track. It's a lot easier to sort of build a routine, because they can be, it's not like they have to set their alarm for 3 o'clock in the morning when they're at home. So they build a more comfortable routine. They don't have to rush in the gym. They take their time. They have bigger programs. When they're on site, it's smaller programs, and it's just controlling what you can. When it comes to fitness, when it comes to food, when it comes to all of that sort of stuff, it's controlling what you can on site, and then really trying to make use of your time on R&R, where you can do some really extended self-care, spend some more time in the gym, fill up on some really amazing foods while you're back in Perth or back where, back in the city. And then, get back to site and just what you can.
Yeah, I guess the other thing as well, like if you are limited with stuff, there's certain like bands or things or whatever that are really lightweight, you could take with you to
Yeah.
up your workouts or change your workouts or modify. Because you're right, if you've got a limited amount of equipment and space, and you just feel like you're doing the
Yeah.
same shit every time you go to work, it's not that motivating either. So having someone who can build your program with what you've got, so you're not just going in there blindly doing the same things, but also little things that you kind of like, cool, we'll add bands in for this, or we'll just modify it slightly or whatever, must make a big difference as well. Because I get bored after
Yeah.
6 weeks or something of a
Yeah.
routine. I'm like, okay, can we change it up now?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. 4 to 6 weeks, I think, is long enough for most people on a program before they're like, "I'm bored, I'm over this, change something in it." Especially if I've programmed like an exercise that they struggle with and they don't particularly like. Although it's achieving what they need it to achieve, they're like, "Okay, I'm done with this now." So taking bands to site is really, really good. That can change what I can program so much. It gives me a lot more. Even people, so there are still a couple of camps, usually rail camps, where there's no access to gyms. So they are doing whatever they can in their room. So if you take bands, my life becomes infinitely easier programming for them, because they just don't have access to anything. So rail camps are usually quite small. There's usually a very small amount of people there, and there's not much else around. You can have your food, you can go to sleep, and there's not much else. So for those people that are working out in their rooms, taking anything, like even if you just have, a couple kilos worth of dumbbells that you can squeeze into your bag or something, makes such a difference. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. Because Yeah, you don't really think about that. There's the difference in the camps and stuff, but also if you're working out in your room as well, that's tough. Like yeah, I don't know how I'd go with that, maintaining that consistency. Because then also, if it is so hot outside, it's not like you're just going to go for a run. I don't know
Yeah,
what the
yeah.
cardio situations like either, walking and running and stuff.
Yeah, so that's quite difficult. This time of year, I don't program cardio for anyone that doesn't have access to a gym. Um, but during like our winter, but their dry season, up in the Pilbara, you can go. Some sites do have walk trails um, that you can go for a bit of a wander, and it's beautiful. Like if they're anything like me, I love the Pilbara. I miss it so much. It's beautiful out there. So the walk trails are lovely. Others just do a bit of a walk around the camp itself. So you can still do a couple of laps around the camp and you can get yourself up to 2, 3 Ks quite easily. But yeah, coming to this time of year, we really need to be mindful of cardio because it's humid, the storms are rolling in, it's hot. Hydration becomes such an issue because it's just gross. It's just
Yeah.
really hard up there.
Yeah. So can you explain a little bit about what you do for these women? So you've now got your own business, the FIFO Project, yeah?
Yeah.
So are you just doing workout programs for women who are in the FIFO industry, or what's your jam?
Yeah, so I am a very big believer in holistic health and well-being. I don't think there's any point in going to the gym if the rest of your life and health is completely falling apart. So you can go to the gym all you want, but you can't out-train a bad diet. You can't out-train stress and burnout. You can't out-train all of those sorts of things. So we have really holistic programs, and I love. We've got a lot of workshops in our workshop library, which you have kindly done quite a few for me now. So we look at all aspects of health and well-being and anything FIFO related. So I've even had a lady come on and do some financial well-being stuff because financial stress is a huge stress for most people. We look at relationships and long distance relationships, mental health, mindset, all those sorts of things. They all add to it. If you're at work and you feel like your relationship's falling apart, that's adding stress. It stops you going to the gym. It stops you from eating, or it all plays in together. So we do a lot of fitness stuff. That's programming. Everything's delivered online, so you can access it when you're at site. But we have the workshops as well. We've got a nutritionist that does a lot of work with us as well. Just trying to give as much support and build as much of a community as we can between these women. We've done a few social catch-ups too, which have been super fun. Yeah, so it's really quite a holistic program, and we look at stress management techniques. We look at building that consistency between being at work and being at home. How to sort of build those routines because they have to look quite different. Even sleep between day shift and night shift, sleep impacts weight loss enormously more than most people know. So
Yeah, I
yeah,
think that's a huge one, and the getting to sleep and the switching off and that whole cortisol rhythm. Like I would be
yeah,
tempted to say you almost need to throw in some adaptogens or melatonin or something to try and keep
yeah,
that rhythm nice. Because otherwise, yeah, I've seen women who've done FIFO for years and then they're done now, and I'm like, oh no, like night
yeah.
shift stuff, and I'm like, their cortisol and melatonin are so backwards
Yes.
because it's just been like such a toll on their body for so long. Like it's not unfixable, but it's reworking all that patterns and trying to balance things out in your body is quite tricky.
Yeah, yep. Sleep is a massive one. And, when I first meet people, they're like, oh, I say, what's your sleep like on night shift? Oh, I get 3 or 4 hours. It's great. And I'm like, please don't say that that's okay. 3 hours on night shift is not great, but it's set as like the standard. Everyone sleeps that way. So you feel fine. You just adapt to it. But the toll that it takes on your body, which is what you're seeing once they're coming out of FIFO, the toll it takes on their body is immense. And we need to have that switch off at nighttime. We need to be able to, even in the daytime, coming off night shift, or even working underground, you come out into the daylight. So your body's like, oh, hey, daylight, natural light, let's wake up and be happy. When you're like, it's bedtime actually. So you're really fighting against your body doing night shift in
Yeah.
general. So yeah, sleep is a big one. We do a lot of work on trying to improve sleep, getting a good nighttime routine going, like pre-bedtime routine. Have a list of 3 or 4 different things that you do so that your body knows, hey, when I go and do this, it starts to slow you down. Your body's getting into that rhythm of sleep.
Yeah, yeah, no, I love that. That makes sense because I said like that switching off and having your body know, okay, this is sleep time. This is what we do. This is when we wake up, and then off you go. Because yeah, I reckon that's one of the most damaging stuff, even for gut things as well. Like I just like that your bowel loves routine and it loves regularity and it likes knowing when you're going to poo and it likes knowing when you're
Yes.
waking up and if that's what we're doing. So if you've got a nice sleep routine and you wake up and you have a bowel movement or you have one before bed or whatever it is, that whole, yeah, the body just loves routine, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Same with the gym, like the eating, the sleeping, the work, the gym, the everything kind of just works so much nicer.
Yeah. Yeah.
So for those who want to know more about you and what you do, the FIFO Project on Instagram is the best place to find you, and your website, the fifoproject.com. Um,
.au on the end,
is it?
I think.
Okay, let me add that to the notes here. Um, yes, and you've also got a podcast up and running, don't you?
Yes, I do. And that's been, yeah, I've actually heard quite a bit of feedback on that this week. So,
Yeah.
love talking to people that are working in the industry right now and what their day looks like and how they are adapting and trying to create those routines and trying to, it's a survival guide for FIFO.
Yeah, and I love that because I feel like it is such a massive industry here in Australia. There's so many men and women working on site and working away or are partners with someone who's doing it. So you're not only battling that daily, mental load of yourself or it's your partner or you're raising a family or your relationships. Like I just feel like it's such a underrated area of support. We kind of just assume
Yeah.
well, that's what people do. They go and work away and off you go and that's their choice. But there's so many factors around it with finances and food and gut issues and gym and routine. And if we didn't have the FIFO industry, we'd be stuffed. But at the same
Yeah.
time, are we supporting those people enough beyond just a pay packet? Like what other areas are there to support someone who's working away?
Yeah, yeah, it's such an area of need, I think. And looking at women in mining as well, there are a lot more women in mining, and it's fantastic to see. But they're increasing their workforce with a lot more women before they've got stuff available for women. There's mine sites that don't have toilets out on site for women and things like that. Still, one lady was at a site, quite a big site, I would have thought, that didn't have sanitary bins in their toilets. So, when the industry is growing and it is fantastic. WA as a state, Australia as a country, let's be fair, would be absolutely stuffed without the mining industry.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's growing so fast and they're trying to make so many improvements, but we're just not, we're getting ahead of ourselves in some ways.
Yeah, yeah, you're right. And that support needs to be there for women to be able to be safe and comfortable and happy while you're working away. You're right. Because otherwise, either you don't go and you pull back and you're losing really qualified or good workers and hard
Yeah.
workers in an industry that definitely needs it. But yeah, who's gonna want to work somewhere where you don't feel supported, your mental health is going to shit. Like at the end of the day, money's only so attractive to a point, and then
Yeah.
you're like, stuff this, like I've only got one life. I don't want to, live it just
Yeah.
shit the whole time.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, thank you. That was awesome. I will pop all the links in the show notes of your stuff. But for anyone who's listening and wants to reach out to Emma, please do. Please follow along her Instagram or her podcast, or hit her up with questions because, yeah, her knowledge on FIFO stuff is amazing. And like I said, there's so many women who could use extra support in that area. So thank you so much for doing what you do. We really appreciate you.
Thank you. Thanks for chatting to me today.
My pleasure.